Hello, viewers. I'm SB, and welcome back to perhaps the final episode of Dungeons and Diagrams here in Last Call BBS. I mean, maybe, could be. You can't prove it won't be. You're weirdly combative about it immediately. Okay, what jumps out here? Well, it's very interesting that there's a column that has only 2 walls in it, but also 3 enemies. So what? That tells us that one of these 2 is a wall, one of these 2 is a wall. This is definitely open. And these spaces are also definitely walls, because the open spaces adjacent to these slimes must be in this column. So that gives us a little bit to work with right away. Okay, what else can we get? Is there any place else where there aren't enough walls to surround the monsters in the row or column? It looks like the answer is no. There's no place else where we can make this kind of like immediate assumption. So there are 2 more walls across here. Like, it could be the case that this is open and then one of these 2 is open and the other one is a wall. Could be the case that the open side of this guy is down, though, and I don't know how we would approach figuring that out. Okay, what else do we know for sure? This has got to be a wall. Which is, meaningful, because now that tells us that one of these 2 tiles is open, and so are all of those, which does give us something to work with. We're actually making, we're making some headway here. So it could be the case that the pardon me. It could be the case that the hallway extends down here, and this is a break. Could be the case that this is extending here. That's a dead end for this guy. So we don't quite have that information. We don't really have a lot of columns that have many walls. This is the one where the information is most meaningful. Okay, all right, well, here's the thing we know. It could be the case that one of these is fully blocked off, right? 2 of these 4 tiles are still walls. If it is the case, it has to be this one. Right, it could be these are both walls, that's a wall. And then, like I said, the hallway to reach these 2 just enters through here. It cannot be the case that these are both blocked off. So at least one of the walls is down here in this pairing. If there's only going to be one wall in this pairing, it obviously can't be that one, because dead end. So in all of the possible cases, this tile is a wall. We know that for sure. And that means that if this slime's open, if the hallway to this slime runs through the tile to its left, then this is the last wall in that row. Which is potentially interesting. Okay, what about this row? This row, we got to be able to get something out of the fact that this slime is sort of like blocking these spaces in, right? 3 of these have to be walls. Obviously, this can't be the only one that's open. But I think beyond that, we don't have enough information to rule any of these 3 spaces as definitely open or closed. We still have 5 walls in this row, and unfortunately, like, very little information about where they are. At the moment, they could be basically anywhere. At least one of these 2 is a wall, possibly both of them. So there's a lot of open space in this row. It's just hard to tell where. All right, let's try to work this out. Like, what are the legal ways for these 2 slimes to have paths drawn to them that conform to the number of walls we have to work with here. There are 4 tiles adjacent to monsters in this row. At most, 2 of them are walls. One of these 2 definitely is. The other one could be like over here to compress the hallway down. I think it's more likely that this is a wall that's open. Yeah. We have one more wall in this column still, and it, like, for the moment, it is still the case that it could be here, and the hallway could, yeah. You know, have you ever had a good time in a water temple in a video game? I should have seen the title and immediately known it was going to be a nightmare. I don't know. I actually do. I know that this is not going to be a popular opinion. I actually do like the water temple in Ocarina of Time. So when we're talking about the approach to this guy, if we assume that only one of these 2 tiles is a wall, then that means that one or both of these slimes have to be approached from the bottom. But we know that the tile adjacent to one of them is open because we don't have enough walls to fill the whole row. So there's an opening. Okay, so we know for a fact that this guy is, the opening for this guy is sideways, right? Because one of these 2 is approached from the side, which means there will be a wall in the space below them. So that does tell us that. And as such, we have walls in these positions to avoid 2x2s. Okay. We don't know which one of these slimes is approached from the bottom and which one is approached from the side, though. Can it be the case that this one is approached from the side and then, like, yeah, totally, right? Because, like, this is valid and then the hallway comes up like that. Oh, sorry, I do know that. Yeah. And it's obviously easily possible that the hallway just runs up between 2 of the slimes. Yeah. Okay, so I don't feel like I can fill anything in there yet. What else can we get? What about this row? I guess this is still a possibility because these 2 spaces could be walls. 1, 2, wall comes, or the path comes down here, path comes down here, that's a wall. That's also totally valid. Frustratingly so. Yeah, there's one critically important piece of information that is missing here that I think is going to crack this whole thing open because we're like really close to solving a number of rows and columns. How do we determine one more thing? Well, I guess, okay, we do know a number of tiles here. We know these 2 tiles are open because the 2 wall tiles have to be adjacent to slimes. So exactly one of the tiles remaining in this column is a wall, and I think it does have to be this one. Right? Because if you do this, you're going to end up with a 2x2 on one of these sides, or you're going to end up with a weird dead end. So I think that is... Yeah, because this is open. So yeah, that is conclusively telling us that that is how this is enclosed. This must be open... And so that solves this row. what else can we get off of that? We still have a fair number of positions for these tiles. There are a couple of different ways this hallway can connect up to the rest of the dungeon. So this could just run past like that. No, it can't. It cannot just run past because then we're wall, wall, wall. The only way to access this slime would be from the bottom, which would put a fifth wall in this row. So is this able to be open? If this is open, that's definitely a wall. Is this able to be open? And then like turn downward. Well, this doesn't work, right? Because then you'd have to go wall and wall to avoid doing any 2x2s. And then that's all 5 of the walls in this row used up already. You'd have to have this be true, which we know cannot be true. So you can't come to this space and then go downward. But I guess you wouldn't have to. You could have this be open, have this be a wall. Or have this space be open, have this space be a wall, and then just like fully dead end, right? Because you're connected to the rest of the hallway. But if you do that, we've already determined if this is open, this must be closed. You once again create the position where you have to have, also it creates an illegal number of walls in this column. So I think, is there any other way you could draw this path this way? I don't think so. I think this has to be here. I think this has to be a wall. And we don't know that in theory, but I guess we do now. Yeah, I think that has to be a wall, so this has to be open. And that means, what does that mean? Well, I guess that means that we know this is open because the other wall in this row is adjacent to this slime. There are 2 walls unaccounted for in this row. They can't both be here. One of these tiles must be open, but they also can't both be open. One of them must be a wall. If one of them must be a wall, it can't be this one because it would create a dead end. So we know that. One of these 2 is a wall and the other one is open. Well, I guess we know this one's not open. And then if that's true, this has to run up to here. And then it is perfectly legal for either of these to be the open space and either of them to be the wall. One of them is each, and we can't actually tell which is which. That's a little awkward. Okay, that's fine. We can keep moving here. So there are 2 wall tiles unaccounted for in each of these columns. One of them is up there, which means that's still quite squishy though, right? This could totally be a wall because this is connected to the hallway at large. We know that one of these, I guess actually this column is solved, as is this one. Okay, that does help. This column is also solved. I gotta remember to actually draw this stuff in. Okay, well, then we know that and that. As far as water temples go, that was not so bad. The Council of the Unmaking. I feel like that's the thing you don't need I don't know. I don't know that I would formalize a thing like that, personally. Okay, so it's very interesting that this is a 7-wall row adjacent to 2 monsters, right? It cannot be the case that the open tile in this row is adjacent to one of the monsters. Because if it was, then there would be no way to connect the top of the dungeon to the bottom of the dungeon. And we know there's open space down here. If these two rows were all wall, that would be one thing. But the open space in this row has to connect. It has to run through, clean through. It can't be a dead end. So we know that at least. How much does that help us immediately? Not a huge amount necessarily. So let's see. There's 3 openings on this row, and 2 of them are monsters. So only one of them is actually an open space, which means one of these monsters is surrounded by walls. So one of the monsters has a wall in this row. And we know that the non-wall tiles, or the non-monster adjacent tiles in this row are definitely not walls. We know that exactly one of the 2 walls in this row is adjacent to a monster, but unfortunately that's very difficult to make anything out of. Okay, let's talk about 4 walls in this row. So as we've discussed before, this is bad. This is a no-no. There's not really, these have to be attached to the corners, right? I don't think there's another way to break this up. So this is bad. You'd have to leave at least 3 tiles for a turnaround. So yeah, if nothing's in the corner, this is the best you can do. If there are wall tiles in the corner, any combination of corner stuff really works. And unfortunately, because they can all be contiguous in one of the 2 corners, or you could do something like this. The problem is we know there's definitely a tile in one of these corners. There could be tiles in both, but we don't know that there are tiles in both. And so I can't really actually draw anything yet. There's definitely some corner stuff going on. And that's going to be significant given that there are very small numbers of walls available in those side areas, but can't do it right now. 4 walls is not, it's not really information. 3 walls is kind of interesting because that tells us that there is in fact an open space adjacent to one of the monsters in this column. Unfortunately, it could be both, right? Yeah, it totally might be both. And the fact that it might be both of them, only having one wall tile adjacent to them, means I can't actually draw in the spaces that are not adjacent to the monsters. Because we don't know. It is possible for one of them to be a wall, actually. Very inconvenient. Well, I gotta be honest with you, this council is unmaking me pretty good right now. They really seem to know what they're doing. So there's definitely something going on here with the horizontal passages. We have that 6 right next to the monsters, and then 2 5s in between the monsters. So there's not a lot of room for crossover, and some amount of those crossover spaces are going to be eaten by the monster dead ends. But just looking at this, I can't really make heads or tails of it. Let me just push onward here. Okay, I love a treasure room. Treasure room's super helpful. So obviously that, and in fact, we know that this wall of the treasure room must be. Well, do we know that? Yes, because if the opening was here, then we're completely blocked off from the rest of the puzzle. Yeah. So this wall of the treasure room, sorry, this wall of the treasure room, the wall of the treasure room in this column must be solid, but we don't actually know which columns the treasure room is in just yet. But we know this part at least. There is only one wall in this row. It doesn't necessarily tell us a huge amount just yet. 5, 2, 2. Actually, okay, no, this is interesting because there are 3 monsters adjacent to the row. In or adjacent to. So at most, one of these spaces can be a wall. They could all just be open though, right? There's nothing preventing that from being the case. Yeah. Okay. So how about this? In the rows that the treasure room is in, we have a total of 6 wall tiles. 2 of them are being consumed by this monster. It is possible for the treasure room to only take up another 2, potentially, if it's up against the wall here. In fact, it has to be up against the wall, right? Because otherwise, like if this was the treasure room, the lowest wall solution is like that, right? There's a hole in one space, but it eats all of the wall tiles on 2 of the rows where we know there must be a wall tile in at least one of those for the monster. So I think that is telling us that this is the treasure room, and as such, that is the lower wall. These are definitely also... Yeah, okay. So that's good information. So 2 of these tiles are going to be walls. Potentially all 3 of them. Could be all 3 of them, and the entrance to the treasure room could be up here. But at least 2, and definitely exactly 2, leaves 1 to 2 walls elsewhere in the area, elsewhere in these rows. And that's a little tricky to deal with because we don't know how this thing is approached yet, or... Yeah, we can't really do much with that yet. Let's talk about this stuff. This could be open or could be closed. No, it can't be. What am I talking about? This is obviously wrong. This must be an open tile. And if that's an open tile, this has to be a wall and this has to be an open tile. And that solves the row. That also has to be open. This actually could be closed. This could totally be a wall because dead end. Oh, actually, this is also solved. So we know that. One of these tiles is a wall. And then there's only one opening in this row. And it goes all the way into the north part of the puzzle. So... Well, we know this isn't the one wall. We can we can say that with some certainty. This could totally be an open tile. It could also be a wall and have the whole thing just connect all the way across. Actually, I guess we know that these must connect because everything has to tie up before it goes into the next row. So yeah, all of this stuff has to be connected. Then one of these tiles is an open tile, and it could be literally... Nope, never mind. Solved column saves the day. I guess then we know that this is the treasure room entrance. Because again, solving columns, it's a big deal. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so these are both walls. There you go. Ichabod's grave mistake is our benefit. You know, sometimes they say one man's trash is another man's treasure. In fantasy settings like this, it is often the case that one man's treasure is his own death, which is then, you know, another woman's treasure. So, treasure room. We know the treasure room is in I guess we know the treasure room is in these 3 columns because of the 6. It's just a matter of which row completes the treasure room, and it really could be either. Yeah, totally could be either. It's interesting that there's only 1 wall in this row. I mean, sort of. It's not so interesting. Tanaxis's Gullet. Tanaxis is a very good name for like a demon-aligned creature, and I think satyrs in the sort of common fantasy game canon are generally demon-aligned, right? I hate to always go, well, are satyrs in D&D this way? Because that's what's authoritative. Because, like, all right, this is not... Dungeons and Diagrams is not supposed to be the hot take factory. You know, it's not a hot take, though. I'm just... Okay, I have feelings about D&D is the is the long and the short of that, and we'll just leave that there. I guess, actually, we know this tile's a wall, which tells us that that's the treasure room. Yeah, which means that these are actually all walls, for sure. And these are also all walls. Okay. I'm resisting the urge. I'm resisting the urge to try to explain myself. Now I've said I have feelings about D&D, and part of me is like, so clarify. You gotta clarify. But if I start clarifying, it's going to become a whole thing. There are people in the comments yelling at me. Because there are always people on the internet yelling at you. Especially like expressing opinion about role-playing game stuff as a marginalized person. You're going to get feedback. So we still don't know where the entrance to the treasure room is. It's interesting that there are 4 walls in the 5 spaces here. So we know that's a wall. This would also have to be a wall to avoid making a 2x2 near the treasure room, because, like, obviously, like, this is hugely problematic. So we know that. It does feel like this could totally be the way... We know this is open. This could totally be the position of the wall in this row. There's 2 walls here, which is like just enough to completely deny us any information at all. Then again, I'm all nervous about getting shouted at for my very well-informed and definitely correct D&D opinions. But, like, who do I think is still watching these videos? If you are still here, if you are still watching this many episodes into me playing Dungeons and Diagrams, I salute you. Thank you very much. You are the people that keep this whole endeavor functional and profitable. And it really does mean the world to me. So this column. We know this tile's not the wall, right? That's an open tile for sure. It could be the case that this is the wall, the hallway comes up here and runs that way. It could be the case that this is the wall, this is the way out of the treasure room. Well, actually, no, this can't be the case because there's only 1 open tile here. So this also must be open. And if that is the case, this also must be open to avoid creating a dead end. And if that is the case, this is also open, which is not useful, but it is true. So there are 4 wall tiles in these 5 tiles. The only place that the 1 open tile can go is here, right? Because otherwise you'd be creating a dead end. Telling us this, which is actually really interesting. I guess also telling us that. So there are 2 wall tiles here, 1 open tile. This could be open if this is wall. Yeah, and then that's wall and that's wall. That's a perfectly coherent that's a perfectly coherent strategy. If this is the wall and this is open, you have a very easy like connection down, right? If this is the case, then this thing can just wrap around there. This can just run that way. Well, this row does have to have 2 more wall tiles in it though, doesn't it? I guess the wall tiles could be like here and here. And then this can just wrap around underneath. Could they though? Because then how do you resolve this column? Like that's a problem. That's a problem. And that's a problem because that just leaves a huge open area. So no, I think this has to be the wall. I think that's what we're looking at. Yeah, I believe that is the real. Okay, so 3 of these 4 tiles are walls. Obviously, one of these 2 is open. These 2 are both walls. This has to be open. So that's the wall here. There's 1 more wall and 1 more open space. There's 2 open spaces and 1 wall here. Well, we know this space can't be open. Oh, no, that's not true. It can be if this space is also open. So yeah, that's a legal placement for that wall. The wall can't be here. That's a thing we know. That causes problems. And if this space is open, then the wall must be here. Which means this space also is a wall because this space has to be open. That's definitely a wall. This is open, so that's a wall. These are both open, and there you go. Right down to Naxxus's gullet. We're getting there. We're totally getting there. Okay, so immediately we know one of these 2 is open, one of them is a wall. The Archlich, who is, I assume, on the level of organization above the seasonal kings. The Archlich is the one who oversees the changeover, perhaps. He gets to live right here. We have this treasure room. All valid treasure room setups contain those tiles. And in fact, I guess we know that the treasure room does not extend up to here. So we know that this row is all walls except for the 3 treasure room tiles. And then it's probably the case this row has skeleton, skeleton, 3 treasure room tiles, and 3 walls. And that's exactly all of the tiles. So those are both walls. Whichever one of the tiles here is not treasure room is also a wall. It could be the case that the wall is right here, or the treasure room is right here, and the entrance to the treasure room is in this tile, right? Satisfying the 2 walls here. Yeah, totally could be. There are 4 tiles adjacent to skeletons in this row, but only 3 of them can be walls. Unfortunately, because we don't know how many dead ends we're satisfying with the one that has to be open, it's really difficult to predict anything about the row below it. Okay, we know this is open. We know this is open. This column, or this row, only has 2 entrances. Oh, actually, sorry, this column is totally solved. That does help a fair amount. One, two, three, four. I guess we know this as well. And then 2 of these 3 tiles are walls. And I think every possible arrangement of those is still legal for the moment. I guess actually this tile can't be open because there wouldn't be enough walls in the row below. So we know that's closed, which means we know that's open. It is still the case that either of these two could be the open tile on this row, though. All right, what else can we get? What else can we get? So, can it still be the case that can this still be true of the treasure room? We say that's the way out. It reaches up like this. That would have to be open, which means closed, closed, open totally works. This is a wall. These are all open. This seems solid. And then you have to have... Oh, sorry. These are all treasure room tiles. You have to have walls like that. This has to be open, so that has to be a wall. Yeah. Okay, the guess and check seems to have worked out. I immediately have reservations about having resolved it that way, but at this point we have resolved it. I can't really pretend that we haven't. Guess and check is way more satisfying when you successfully prove that something cannot be a certain way. The true Maze of the Minotaur. Okay, that feels very climactic. We should do that one last, even though I have no idea where we're at with this one. The Council of the Unmaking indeed. So there's enough walls here to cover all of the monsters. This one feels like there is remarkably little information, which probably just means there is some kind of trick that I have not grasped yet that is relevant to the entire proceedings, right? Okay, can we make any deductions about the position of the open tile in the 7 row? Not really. If it turns out that this tile is a wall, it would give us a huge amount of information, which means that I suspect that it's not the wall. But I don't know. It totally could be if that's a thing that's a thing that's difficult to arrive at, right? That could be a piece of information that's nestled fairly deep in the logic chain. So we have a mostly open column here, a mostly closed column here. It could be the case that there are 2 ways through this row, or through this column, so that we have sort of a circular path. It could also be the case that there's only one linkage between the west column and the east side of the puzzle, and that the other opening in this is just a monster dead end, right? Absolutely could be. Then this column has 2 actual open tiles in it, and we know nothing about them. Once again, one of them could be a monster dead end. This column has 3 open spaces. Yeah, there's still too much uncertainty as to where the open spaces around the monsters are. I can't really I can't begin to pin anything down. So, okay, 2 open spaces, 2 open spaces, 3 open spaces. That's 7 in total. 2 of them are taken up by the monster by being adjacent to the monsters. So that's 5 in total. And 5, I think, is still enough to weave through the area in a significant number of ways, especially considering that one of the tiles that is adjacent to a monster can still be part of a hallway if it just runs through like that, right? So if there are 7 open tiles, at most 2 of them are... Well, no, I can't say that. It is possible that up to like 4 of them could be part of a dead end, right? Because like you could have this situation. That's still, even if that is true, that still leaves 3 tiles, enough to build a hallway. If the number was smaller and we could like conclusively prove that these monsters can't both be approached in that way, like that would be interesting. But the number's not smaller, so I need another crowbar. A better crowbar. There are only 2 actual open tiles in this row. Neither of them have to be adjacent to monsters. If they're not, then we have open tiles adjacent to monsters in the surrounding rows, but like there's 8 open tiles, sorry, 9 open tiles in the surrounding rows, which is way too many for us to get any information. Okay, let's talk about maybe like working on the edges here. So if there's exactly 1 wall, we know it can't be here. We know it can't be here. And we know it can't be here. Because any of those situations create an untenable position. Okay, down here, the wall can be in this space. There can be a wall in this space as long as there's a wall in that space as well. This is perfectly legal. No matter what, there can't be a wall here, I guess. Right? There's no version of that. Like, yeah, you can't use the second tile to close that up. Like, this is bad if there's only 1 tile in the column, but you can fix it if there's a second tile by doing that. There's no version of this that is fixable. So I think that is necessarily open. And actually, that solves a row. That does give us some stuff to work with. So now we know that there is only 1 more open tile in this column, and it must be adjacent to this monster. So we know that, which means we know this. Provided that my math is good here. Right, because exactly 1 of these can be open. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Why was I so certain? No, that's right. Exactly 1 of these is open. And that means exactly one of these 2 must be open. Okay, that's all solid. Solid-ish. Solid-like. So 1 of these 2 tiles is a wall. Both of those are definitely not walls. If that's the case, it does put some limitations on where stuff can be in this bottom row, as we have worked out. If there are 3 tiles in a row, they can be basically anywhere. This becomes fine because you can do that. Yeah. Okay, well... So we don't know too much about this row. This row over here, on the other hand, this definitely isn't a wall. This could be, though. And with 4 wall tiles available, so this could be, which means either 3 or 4 of these 5 are walls. Is there any version of that where this is open? No, right? Even if this is a wall, and so we only have 3 walls to spend in this area, there's no layout where this makes sense. Because you're either creating a 2x1 or a 1x1 on one side. So this space is necessarily a wall, regardless of everything else. That leaves 2 walls in this column, which is absolutely still potentially covering this monster. Okay, what else? What else? What else? We can't really make any headway here yet. Yeah, because we don't know where the other block in this row is, we can't make a lot of headway in the bottom part of the puzzle yet either, I think. I mean, I guess let's have a look. So it could totally be the case that this hallway just runs all the way across there. The other wall tile could be here. Well, okay, hold on a second. Here's the thing we know. At most, one of these two spaces can be open. And this one, this has to be the one. So actually, we know that, which tells us that this has to connect to that monster. Also, it tells us this column. Okay, so that has to be one of those. Now, we know that the 4 wall tiles are... Well, this can't be open. Which means this can't be open. Which means this can't be open. That's pretty straightforward, actually. Okay, what else do we know pretty conclusively? That this is an open space. One of these two is a wall. It's not immediately very telling. I guess this has to be open because it can't be a dead end. And so this has to be open. This still could be a dead end. That has to be a block. Now that I'm looking at these, I think this has to be a wall, right? There's no valid configuration of 3 tiles over here that doesn't include that as a wall. Yeah. Okay, I mean, first of all, we know this too. So I think these 3 have to be walls then. And with that being the case, we get this and that and that and that. All right, who's unmade now? I love the hyper beholder here. These little victory flips. Okay, let's do it. Let us enter the true maze of the Minotaur and apply all this information that we've worked so hard to earn. Apply all these strategies that we've worked so hard to learn. How about that? Gosh, this does not feel like very much to work with. I mean, it has to be the hard one, right? So... 6 walls in these 2 rows, 2 of which are adjacent to the Minotaur. Not really very helpful. Okay, let's start work with this stuff. So we know these 2 tiles, we know these 2 tiles, these 2 and these 2. None of those can be walls because of the, the basic rules that we've worked out about how a single wall in a space can work. Is there any other place where we can make a read like that and just start writing stuff down? The other things that are along the wall are maybe a little bit less informative. So there is either 1 or 2 walls in this row adjacent to the Minotaur, which means we have either 2 or 3. Sorry, we have either 1 or 2 blocks remaining in the rest of the wall. So I think this tile still can't be a wall, if that's true, right? There's no arrangement of 1 or 2 tiles that makes that okay. So that is open, and that actually gives us a whole column, which is something to work with. Okay, that being true, what else do we know? One of these 2 tiles is a wall for sure. Then this tile is potentially a wall either way. Yeah, this tile could be a wall either way. This tile is definitely a wall if this one's open. But it could be, yeah, it could be open. We have an awful lot of space over here. We have to figure out a way that this could actually run. I guess we know this is open too now. Must be. So there's only one more wall in this row. There's only two more walls in this row. And over on the left side of the wall here, there must be at least one wall tile, right? Obviously, that is unacceptable. So, if that's true, we're talking about a total of 3 wall tiles throughout these two rows, one of which at least is already accounted for. How do we fill this space in a way that is legal using the remaining number of tiles? It has to be something like this, right? I guess that works too. Potentially, depending on how the stuff around it is shaped. Yeah, so unfortunately that doesn't really tell us as much as I would like. For sure, one of the wall tiles from the 3 row is over here. But what I was hoping is we could like do a little bit of deduction and figure out which of these two had to be walls. I guess we do know that it's exactly one of them. And if that's the case, one of them has to be, but there aren't enough wall tiles left for them both to be. Then what? This has to be a wall. Yes, this has to be a wall. Because if this is open, it forces that to be a wall. If this is closed, this can't be open if one of these two has to be a wall, because like that. Oh, well, shit. Except this is a valid position for this wall still. Right? Like, this is totally fine. Yeah, crud. I guess we don't quite have that yet. We have a pretty good idea of the shape of this area, though. Yeah, just not enough to start drawing. Okay, so this is gonna, like, snake down here. Well, okay. So we know that the wall in this column must be in the middle, though, right? Because there aren't enough walls in this column to make that work. If you wanted to just run this straight down, you need, at minimum, 4 walls to make that functional. So, yeah. You just delete those. One of these 2 tiles has to be a wall, which means these 2 tiles are definitely open. This one's definitely open. So one of these 2 is a wall. This one is definitely a wall. That's a wall. Those are walls. This is all the way open. And these 2 both have to be walls, I think? We couldn't leave 2 spaces in this row adjacent to each other. Yeah, so this is right. Okay, that's something. We're getting something. There's exactly 1 wall left in this column. Or this row, rather. I don't actually think we know where it is right now. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Okay. Let's talk about this. This is way more interesting now. So, actually, this has to be open. So we have that solved. One of these tiles is a wall. We know it's not this one, because that would be bad. It could still be this. It can't be this. So we don't have a lot of options left for some of these walls in these columns. 4 of the 5 spaces here... Oh, no, sorry. 3 of the 5 spaces here are walls. We know that one's not a wall. In fact, we know none of these are walls, which tells us that those tiles definitely are walls. That has to be open. This could still... Oh, this must be a wall, in fact. Could is not the right word. So we know that, which means we know this and this, which means we know that. You know, the true Maze of the Minotaur was not even that difficult. The Council of the Unmaking was way better at their jobs. All right, let's read some text. We earned text. So first of all, I finished Steed Hobby Studio. Let's read that. I think was just one more. Yeah, we'd read Pure Motives already, where the guy made the thing to be able to build models with his kid because he couldn't afford to import them. You could just make a fun toy, and that was the whole point. You still can. It's just, you know, capitalism as a whole is definitely a lot more crushing these days. Yeah. Places like itch.io exist. You still see things like that there. It does suck, though, that things have to be aggregated so much now. There was definitely something that was better when the organization of the internet was 1,000 tiny havens rather than 3 giant havens, where if your thing's not in those havens, it may as well not exist. There are a lot of benefits to the latter model as well, but is it better? I'm not sure. How did it pan out? Well, the guy's kid really liked it and then decided to study Japanese. And eventually he went to Japan on an exchange program when he was in high school. Now I'm told he's off studying 3D art so he can be one of the guys who designs his own robots for video games and movies. It's funny how things cycle around like that. You think something's just a fun hobby that has nothing to do with your actual work, and then your kid ends up making it his entire career. I wonder how many other kids grew up like that, with computers in their homes. Hand raised. I didn't have a computer in my home until I was like 11 or 12, because we were very poor. But I did have access to computers in other places in my life. Okay, now this stuff. So this was the last one he had read before. The dev was a middle-aged guy named Ilka who lived in this tiny village in the middle of nowhere. He got a deal with a publisher. Turned out the folks he'd signed with weren't exactly above board, was the cliffhanger. Business jerks. I don't know the details, but Ilka's publisher ended up owing him money, and he didn't have a lot of options because he was just one guy in Finland as opposed to the business jerks who were based in a big city and had lawyers and so on. That experience took the fun out of it pretty fast for him. Understandable. You know, the older I get, the more I'm convinced money ruins everything. Anyway, he gave me permission to host the cracked version on my BBS for a while, just so people could check it out, and maybe to stick some screws to that no-good publisher. As far as I know, Ilka still lives in that little cabin in his tiny village in Finland. Every couple of years we write to each other, just to check in and ramble about the old days. Sometimes I want to ask why he never made another game, since it seemed like he was perfectly good at it, but I think I know the answer already. Making games just wasn't what he wanted to do with the rest of his life. His brush with the business side only confirmed that. For him, it was really about wondering if he could do it. He did, and then he moved on to other things. Some of us like to keep moving like that. There was a time, and when I say a time, I mean like a decade. I mean like a solid decade of my life, where I thought for sure I was going to be a game developer. That was the only thing I was really interested in. It's what I, aimed myself toward in high school. It's what I went to college for both times. But the more and more I became aware of the realities around it, and the business stuff like this is definitely a big part of it, the more I realized I could never ever be happy doing that. I don't know. Maybe I should put something on itch. I don't know. Something to think about, I guess. I guess that's going to be the end of that for today. Thank you all so much for watching. We did it. We finally got through. When you come back next time tomorrow, we're going back to the games that we have still left behind. I'm going to have a solution to that 20th century food court problem, and we are going to really crack Chip Wizard. I'm not sure that I'll play through all of Chip Wizard on camera, but I do want to at least get the log entries on camera. It's just, it feels kind of boring, is the thing. Maybe once I really get into it, I'll find the mechanics kind of override my gentle distaste for the theming. I don't know. We'll see. Come back next time, tomorrow, for food court stuff at the very least. And we'll see you then.